Hush, 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 here comes the boogeyman. Don't let him come too close to you, he'll catch you if he can. Just pretend that you're a crocodile, and you will find that boogeyman will run away a mile.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. If you're new here, I'm Range Rifle, and today we're going to be talking about one of the biggest horror icons that's somehow still missing from Dead by Daylight. I've got some power ideas, perk concepts, and plenty of reasons why I think Behavior should add him. So, let's jump right into it. When people talk about future license killers, you hear names like Jason, Candyman, Springtrap before he got added, Predator, and Pennywise. But there's one name I don't think gets enough attention anymore, and that is Slenderman. And I'm honestly surprised, because if you really think about it, Slenderman changed horror forever. So if you haven't heard about him, some of you guys may be asking, who is Slenderman? For anyone who doesn't know, Slenderman wasn't created by a movie studio or a game developer. He was created back in 2009 during a Photoshop contest on the Something Awful forums. Someone edited a tall, unnaturally thin man wearing a black suit into old photographs of children. They added some creepy captions, and what started as one image quickly became one of the biggest horror characters the internet has ever seen. People began writing stories, artists started drawing him, entire communities were built around him. Eventually, he inspired fan films, alternate reality games, YouTube series like Marble Hornets, and of course games like Slender, The 8 Pages, and Slender, The Arrival, which are some scary ass games, not gonna lie. For a lot of gamers, Slenderman was their first introduction to indie horror, or even just horror games in general. Without Slenderman's success, it's hard to imagine the indie horror boom looking the same, especially since I think so many people grew up knowing about Slenderman, or that being the first one that they stuck to. Alright, now we're going to get into why Slenderman is such a big deal. One thing that makes Slenderman unique is that he became famous without a blockbuster movie. He spread because people shared him online. People genuinely scared each other with the stories, gameplay videos, and theories. His design is simple: a tall man, no face, a black suit, and long arms. Yet, somehow he's instantly recognizable. Very few horror characters have reached that level of popularity with such a simple design. That's why I think Behavior should seriously consider him. Dead by Daylight celebrates horror history, and the internet horror is absolutely a part of that history. The reason that this even became a thought for me on why he fits Dead by Daylight perfectly is because Dead by Daylight isn't just about chasing survivors. It's about making players nervous. Think about killers like Sadako, the Unknown, and the Dredge. They don't just rely on speed, they create uncertainty. Slenderman practically lives off uncertainty. Most of the time you don't know where he is, you don't know if what you're seeing is real. Sometimes looking directly at him is the worst thing you can do. That's psychological horror. Something Dead by Daylight could always use more of. If I were designing Slenderman, I wouldn't make him another killer that just runs fast or throws projectiles. You know, like Blight, Springtrap, Huntress, Jason. There's a lot of them that throw projectiles. His powers should make survivors question reality. I'd call it static distortion. Every survivor would have a hidden sanity meter, kind of like the Doctor. Whenever survivors look directly at Slenderman, stay within his influence for too long, or encounter one of his clones, or things like that, their sanity slowly increases. At low sanity, nothing really happens. But as it builds, static begins appearing around the edges of your screen, audio starts cutting out, your terror radius becomes distorted, you hear fake generator explosions, maybe even see fake survivor clones. Another cool thing too is that they can make like fake survivor screams happen, fake footsteps. The game slowly starts lying to you. Once your sanity reaches maximum, you begin seeing hallucinations. Talking about the hallucinations, imagine repairing a generator. You look across the map. Slenderman is just standing perfectly still. You panic, run away, only to realize he was never actually there. Imagine you're running into a room to get healed by your teammate, and they lead you towards Slenderman, and the teammate that you were chasing was never actually existing. Fake dropped pallets, fake vault locations, even fake survivors running through buildings, like I said. Dead by Daylight is built around information. Now imagine you can't trust any of it and you can't rely on it. That sounds terrifying. A secondary power that I think you could have, one that goes on like cooldown or wherever, would be teleportation. Slenderman also needs mobility. He has long ass arms and long ass legs for a reason. So instead of sprinting across the map like Blight, I'd let him teleport between areas of darkness or specific landmarks. Trees, lockers, broken structures, the animation shouldn't be flashy. He should simply just disappear and appear somewhere else. Like Jason. Almost like the entity itself is moving him around. That keeps him unpredictable while staying faithful to the character. So those are just his little two powers that I think would be pretty cool with him. As for his Mori, shouldn't be too over the top. Slenderman is just a simple character. No face, a suit, long legs, long arms, in the forest while it's foggy. Super simple. Like what horror is in general. I think it should be like the survivor falls to the ground, everything goes silent, static fills the screen, Slenderman slowly walks up towards them, the dark tendrils emerge from behind his back. The screen fades completely black, and when it comes back, the survivor is just gone. No blood, no body, nothing. Sometimes what's left to the imagination is far more scarier, and makes for good edits and theories too. As long as for the perk ideas, there's one that I was thinking of that could be called Don't Look Away or something. It could go something like this. After maintaining direct line of sight with the killer for several seconds, survivors become oblivious after breaking the vision. Kind of like when you're watching like Enderman from Minecraft. If you watch them for too long, they'll get aggressive and hit you. So I think it's if you make eye contact with Slenderman for a long time, for a few seconds or something like that, the survivor would get oblivious and they would get knocked down in one hit after breaking the eye contact, obviously. So then that way watching him becomes dangerous. The other perk would be endless watching. Generators that haven't been observed by survivors for several seconds regress faster. It rewards map pressure while fitting Slenderman's theme of always watching. The third one could probably be paranoia. Whenever survivors escape chase, they continue hearing your terror radius for several seconds. That'll leave them asking, did he leave or is he still behind you? You won't know unless you just stop and wait for a bit. Alright, now we're down to cosmetics. I think some cool cosmetics that Behavior could do is a classic internet version with the all black suit. I think that's pretty cool. They could do a Slender, the Arrival outfit, which is maybe a different colored suit or things added onto the suit. Our darker entity corruption version, where it has an entity surrounding him or something like that. And then like shadow themed cosmetic. Not making him fully like a ghost or see-through, but definitely a little harder to see. I think that'd be pretty cool and scary. Maybe even like cracked or distorted appearance, where static constantly leaks from his body or his face. I feel like there's a lot of creative freedom within the cosmetics, so I think that'd be a cool feature too. As for who could be the survivor, that area is a little gray, to be honest. There is a movie based on Slenderman, but I think the two girls in that movie are super young to the point where I don't think Dead by Daylight could put them into the game without them running into some legal action or something like that. So the survivor would probably just have to be like a made-up survivor or something, to be honest. But going off survivors that Dead by Daylight has made, they never disappoint, so I think they would look cool. Now, the question always is, would he be balanced or would he be too OP? I actually think his strength wouldn't come from constantly downing survivors. It would come from just information denial. It would just play with the survivors in a sense. You're not always downing them. Even in matches where like solo queue people join, solo queue players would constantly question what they're seeing. Even experienced survivors would hesitate before making decisions. Against coordinated teams, communication would help, but hallucinations and fake audio could still create mistakes. He'd be less about raw chase power and more about slowly breaking a team's confidence. Now, into the biggest thing about him being into the game at all. Is the license actually possible? This is probably the biggest question. Unlike movie characters, Slenderman doesn't have one single simple owner because the character originated online and has since been adapted into different projects with different right holders. That doesn't necessarily mean it's impossible, but it could make a licensing more complicated than some other horror characters. Still, Behavior has surprised us before. They've secured licenses that many people thought would never happen, so while I wouldn't call Slenderman likely, I also wouldn't rule him out, to be honest. So, why Behavior should add him? At the end of the day, Slenderman checks almost every box. He's one of the most recognizable horror characters ever created. He represents an entire generation of internet horror. His gameplay would be completely unique. He has huge cosmetic potential. He would bring psychological horror back to the forefront of Dead by Daylight. And most importantly, he'd actually feel different from the killers we already have. At least most of them. So, for my final thoughts, Slenderman doesn't need to be the fastest killer. He doesn't need to be the strongest chase. And he doesn't need any flashy attacks. His greatest weapon has always been fear. Making players second guess themselves, making them afraid to look behind, making them wonder if what they're seeing is actually even real. And honestly, that's the kind of horror Dead by Daylight was built on. So behavior, if you're somehow watching this right now, this video out of any other video, please give us Slenderman. I promise you, horror fans would lose their minds. I think everybody would have a good positive reaction towards this. But if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know what you think. Does Slenderman deserve a chapter? Or is there another licensed killer you'd rather see first? Drop your ideas in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.